All right, we're about to dive into a story that, well, it seems to flip everything we thought we knew about climate change completely on its head.
You know the image, right? We've all seen it. The polar bear, looking so gaunt, stranded on a tiny piece of melting ice. For years, that's been the symbol, the undeniable poster child for a planet in crisis. It's a powerful, heartbreaking message about the effects of a warming world.
So, what are we supposed to make of this? A new study from January 2024 comes out and says they're actually getting fatter. How is that possible? Does this mean our whole understanding of the situation is just wrong? Let's get into it. Okay, so to understand this, we need to go to a very specific place, the Svalbard archipelago in Norway. And this detail is so important because this area has seen some of the most dramatic and rapid sea ice loss in the entire Arctic. It's basically ground zero for studying the impacts of climate change.
And just look at this contrast. It's pretty stark, right? The old story was declining populations and starving bears. But what these researchers found in Svalbard, looking at around 770 bears, was the exact opposite. The local population was up, and their physical condition, their body fat, had actually improved. They were healthier.
Okay, but hold on. Before we all run out and say crisis averted, we have to do what good science always does. We have to read the fine print. The researchers themselves were really clear that there are some major caveats here that add a ton of context. And this is really important stuff. First off, how they measured the bears back in the day isn't how they do it now, so you're not really comparing apples to apples. Then there's the timing. They collected this data in the spring. That's right after the bears' biggest hunting season, so of course they're going to be at their heaviest. Plus, our tech for just counting them is way better now. Maybe we're just seeing bears that were always there. And a huge one, humans have stopped hunting both the bears and the seals as much. That alone is going to help both populations bounce back. See? It's a lot more complicated than the headline.
So, okay, even with all those disclaimers, let's say the finding is real. How on earth could polar bears be doing better in a place where the ice is vanishing? Well, scientists have a couple of really fascinating ideas that might just solve this puzzle.
The first one is something called the hunting paradox. And yeah, it's just as strange as it sounds. It's this idea that the very thing that's their biggest long-term threat might, for a little while, actually be helping them.
So think about it like this. When you have tons and tons of sea ice, the seals, the bear's main food, are spread out everywhere. It's a huge area to cover. But as that ice starts to shrink, the seals all get packed together on the few pieces that are left. It really is like musical chairs for them. And for the polar bears, it's suddenly an all-you-can-eat buffet. But, and this is the absolute key, that word temporary is everything. Because once that ice is gone, the buffet closes for good. But here's the thing. That Svalbard study, that's just one piece of the puzzle. It's one local snapshot. To really get what's going on, we have to zoom out and look at the whole picture, all across the Arctic.
And when you zoom out, the picture gets a lot darker. I mean, it's absolutely critical to remember that while the Svalbard bears might be having a moment, in other places like Canada, it's the total opposite. Bears there are starving. They're so desperate they're going into towns to eat garbage. That's not a sign of a healthy population.
But all of this pressure, this incredible stress on the species, it's also kicking evolution into high gear. Polar bears aren't just sitting there waiting for things to happen. We are literally watching them try to adapt to a brand new world right before our eyes.
So what does that look like? Well, their behavior's changing. They're eating things they never used to, like reindeer or raiding bird nests. But it's deeper than that. Scientists are now seeing changes in their actual DNA, in their genome, as they try to cope. And maybe the most shocking thing of all, they're creating something entirely new.
And that brings us to maybe the most incredible, most visible sign of this whole massive change. The grizzly bear. Yes, that's a real thing. Part polar bear, part grizzly. It's pretty simple when you think about it. As the world warms up, grizzly bears are able to push farther and farther north. At the same time, the lack of sea ice is forcing polar bears to spend more time on land, pushing them south. And what happens? Their territories overlap, they meet, they mate, and they're producing hybrid offspring that can actually have their own babies. And this new bear, it might just be better equipped to survive in the warmer Arctic of the future. So why should we care about all this? Look, the story of the polar bear is way bigger than just one animal. It's not just about saving this amazing, iconic species. It's about heeding a warning.
They are essentially a living laboratory. They're on the absolute front lines of climate change. Everything they're going through, the struggles, the weird paradoxes like in Svalbard, the incredible adaptations, it's all a preview of the huge, messy, complicated changes that are already underway across our planet.
So in the end, those fatter bears in Svalbard, they don't mean the crisis is over. Not at all. What they do is show us a much deeper truth. Though what's happening to our planet isn't a simple, straightforward story. It is incredibly complex, it's full of surprises and contradictions. So the real question is this a simple tragedy or a much more complicated and frankly astonishing tale of transformation?